Hi, and welcome to the Frog Pond School of Design, where we like to talk about things that may appeal to the architect in all of us. Do you know the difference between wrought iron and cast iron? The difference in their composition is simple. Cast iron has a greater carbon content, but the difference in how these two materials can be used is anything but simple. If you've ever watched a blacksmith at work, you know how they make things by pounding that iron with a hammer. This is wrought iron. It's malleable when hot, and the force of the hammer can shape it into almost anything. The products of the forge were indispensable on the farm, and wrought iron was very popular for decorative fences for a long, long time. But it's cast iron I want to talk about today. Back in the early 18th century, Abraham Darby, an Englishman, developed an iron that could be melted and poured into reusable molds. In 1777, his grandson, Abraham Darby III, had a bridge constructed with the material. It looked like this. So you can see the iron is used structurally in this situation. And that became very popular for a fairly short period of time. One building that was built that way, famous building, was the Crystal Palace. But eventually another iron mixture, which we know today as steel, came along, and cast iron was no longer needed for structural use. Somewhere along the line, someone decided if this material could be poured into molds, all kinds of things could be done with it. In fact, these relatively inexpensive casts could be shipped and used on buildings far quicker and cheaper than carving stone, which is what they had done before. And since those molds were reusable, you could replicate the same piece many, many times over. Eventually, catalogs of these components were available from which a designer or builder could order all the parts necessary for an entire building exterior. The very first version of precast building components was right there at hand, and the timing was perfect for such a material to hit the market. Victorian and neoclassical buildings were in vogue, and more buildings were being constructed with steel skeletons onto which it was a simple matter to attach the facade components. It also didn't hurt that the Chicago fire had builders looking for more fire-resistant products. All these factors came together to make cast iron building facades not only feasible, but advantageous and economical as well. And here you can see various bits and pieces of buildings done with cast iron. These window crowns, the cornices, but most commonly, if you've been in downtown situations, you've seen these facade components used very effectively. And then some buildings had very ornate facades that went all the way up. The entire facade was often done with the cast iron. Probably the most famous, or at least the most familiar application of cast iron, is the dome of the U.S. Capitol building. Of course, this didn't make the traditionalists happy. They complained about the cookie cutter approach and its lack of established artistry. In a way, they needn't worry, because like so many innovations, the cast iron facade didn't stay around forever. Ironically, today's traditionalists look back with favorable nostalgia on those cast iron buildings. More recently, those traditionalists have had other things to worry about anyway. Precast concrete enjoyed a significant reign as king of the preformed building component. And today, synthetic materials are available. There are catalogs of brackets, trim, and other bits and pieces from which facades can be enhanced. Check out Fypon, F-Y-P-O-N, as an example. So who knows what we're going to see next. Hey, thanks for joining us today here at the Frog Pond School of Design. I look forward to seeing you hanging around the pond again real soon.